America once had a serial killer who spared only those who played jazz music. Imagine living in a city where the sound of music could be the difference between life and death. In New Orleans, in the early 1900s, families were attacked in their homes. The killer didn't rob them, and he didn't leave clues that could lead to his capture. Then he sent letters to the city, predicting his next attacks and taunting the authorities. This is the chilling story of the Axeman of New Orleans. It began in March 1918, when Joseph and Catherine Maggio were found dead in their home. Their heads and throats had been attacked with an axe that belonged to the family. The brutal murder shocked the Italian-American community in the French Quarter. Neighbors were terrified. The idea that someone could enter a home and attack a family in their sleep seemed impossible. But over the next months, more attacks followed. Families were struck in the middle of the night, always by someone wielding an axe. Strangely, nothing was ever stolen. There were no obvious motives. People whispered in fear, wondering if the killer was a stranger or if he was one of them. New Orleans police were baffled. They had little evidence and no clear leads. The killer seemed almost untouchable, and the city began to feel as if it were under a curse. Then, in March 1919, the Axeman made his presence known in a way the city had never seen before. He wrote a letter to the local newspaper declaring that he would spare anyone who played jazz music on a specific night. He claimed to be a demon, but promised safety to those who followed his instructions. Imagine the panic. Families across New Orleans played jazz in their homes. Street musicians performed late into the night. The sound of music echoed across the French Quarter, filling homes with the hope of survival. And miraculously, that night, no one was attacked. But the Axeman's reign of terror didn't end there. In the following months, attacks continued sporadically. The city remained on edge, unsure if the next attack would strike at any moment. Some people believed he was motivated by revenge. Others believed he simply enjoyed terrorizing people. Whatever his reason, one thing was clear. The Axeman was unpredictable, and New Orleans was never safe again. The Axeman's victims were mostly Italian-American families. He struck mostly at night, entering their homes and attacking them while they slept. Many of the victims were entire families wiped out in one terrifying night. One of the most chilling aspects of these attacks was how random they seemed. Some families were attacked multiple times while others in the same neighborhood were left untouched. The killer's method was always the same. Yet there was no clear pattern and no signature that could be traced back to him. Survivors were rare. Those who did survive were often too traumatized to speak clearly. Neighbors lived in fear of hearing the sound of an axe striking in the dead of night. The city itself felt like it was being watched constantly. Police investigated dozens of suspects. Some were Italian immigrants with grudges, while others were local men with criminal histories. All were questioned, but none were ever charged. The case became more and more frustrating for law enforcement. Some people believed the Axeman had ties to the mafia. Others suspected a local man with a violent streak and knowledge of the neighborhoods. But every lead seemed to vanish into thin air. The killer left no fingerprints and no clues and disappeared without a trace after each attack. The police were under immense pressure. The city demanded answers. But despite their best efforts, the killer remained free, and the legend of the Axeman grew. Over time, dozens of theories emerged. Some believed the Axeman was a deranged serial killer with no motive but thrill. Others thought he was a supernatural entity, a demon of the night. Some even suspected he was part of organized crime, using fear as a weapon. Names were suggested and arrests were made, but none led to a conviction. The killer disappeared as mysteriously as he had arrived. One of the men investigators and historians later looked at closely was Frank Doc Mumphrey. Mumphrey was a criminal living in New Orleans during the time the Axeman attacks were terrorizing the city. He was also known to use another name, Leon Joseph Mumphrey. At first, he seemed like just another man in a city full of rumors, but several strange details began to make him stand out. One reason investigators grew suspicious was his connection to the jazz business scene in New Orleans. In 1919, the mysterious killer known as the Axeman of New Orleans sent a chilling letter to the local newspapers. The letter read, "Hell, March 13th, 1919. Esteemed mortal, they have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. If you wish, you may tell the police to be careful not to rile me. Of course, I am a reasonable spirit. I take no offense at the way they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid as to not only amuse me, but His Satanic Majesty. But tell them to beware. Let them not try to discover what I am, for it were better that they were never born than incur the wrath of the Axeman." I don't think there is any need of such a warning, for I feel sure the police will always dodge me, as they have in the past. They are wise and know how to keep away from all harm. Undoubtedly, you Orleanians think of me as a most horrible murderer, which I am, but I could be much worse if I wanted to. If I wished, I could pay a visit to your city every night. At will, I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the Angel of Death. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time on next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well then, so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of your people who do not jazz it out on that specific Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Well, as I am cold and crave the warmth of my native Tartarus, and it is about time I leave your earthly home, I will cease my discourse, hoping that thou wilt publish this, that it may go well with thee, the Axeman. Because the Axeman promised to spare anyone who played jazz music in their homes. That night, homes, dance halls, and bars all played jazz music loudly, hoping the killer would stay away. But some historians later noticed something unusual. Around the same time, Mumphrey's jazz-related business reportedly began doing very well. To some researchers, the timing seemed suspicious. Mumphrey also had a criminal past, which only added to the growing speculation that he might somehow be connected to the attacks. Still, despite the rumors and theories, no solid evidence was ever found linking him to the murders. The Axeman was never captured and never officially identified. And when Frank Doc Mumphrey died in 1921, the truth may have died with him, leaving behind one of the most chilling mysteries in the history of New Orleans. Today, the Axeman of New Orleans is remembered as a legend of terror and mystery. His victims are honored, but the killer himself remains unknown. In the city of New Orleans, people once lived through nights where the sound of jazz meant safety. And even today, some locals whisper about the music that filled the streets during those fearful nights. But then, just as suddenly as the terror began, the Axeman disappeared. No arrest, no confession, no clear identity. The killer who terrorized an entire city simply vanished into the shadows. To this day, historians and investigators still debate who he really was. A ruthless serial killer, a man connected to organized crime, or someone hiding in plain sight among the very people he terrified. But perhaps the most unsettling part of this story is the silence he left behind. Families lost loved ones. A city lived in fear. And yet the person responsible was never held accountable. Cases like this leave behind more than fear. They leave behind questions. Questions that grow louder as the years pass. Who was the Axeman? Why did he choose his victims? And how did he manage to disappear without a trace? For the victims and their families, those questions were never answered. And that may be the cruelest part of all. Because some mysteries are not just unsolved, they are unfair.